Rev up those fryers, boys and girls. It's time. Finally. End game Amon build. We've taken our sweet time. We're now Ultimate Vault Hunter 5. We're still shredding with the Infinite Amon build. So we're just going to go over the way I've built it. A little bit different than some of the other creators. I know a lot of creators have gone into this build before, and I think I figured something out that a lot of people aren't really talking about, or at least aren't putting enough emphasis on. So let's get into it. And I'll just get straight into that one thing. That thing is that this build is extremely easy to get and not super dependent on your skill tree. There are 1 or 2 perks you need, and everything else is up to you. You can go heavier into elements like I have. You can go fully into cryo and really lean into the blue tree. You can fully spec into the red tree as well. I've seen people completely ignore the green tree because there's 2 different perks that are able to get that infinite ammo regen on your ordnance. So you can do it a lot of different ways. The way I've done it is mostly cybernetics green tree and then a little bit of the blue tree. So let's show off what we've done. Main thing here in the green tree is endless bombardment. This is required, in my opinion, if you go green tree. This is the main passive that gives you regen for your ordnance. Right here at 5 out of 5, we have a 30% chance for grenade refund and a 30% chance for heavy weapon refunds. The heavy weapon specifically is just on damaging enemies with the heavy weapon. That's it. Obviously grenades and normal ordnance, throwing knives and stuff, it's not really going to refund as often because it's only 30%, and you have like 4 max. So not quite infinite grenades, but it's definitely infinite heavy ordnance. In order to get here, you got to spend 15 up here and then 10 here, and then you get to it. Or sorry, 5 here, then you get to it. So the 15 up here, I've gone heavy into elemental as a whole. So we've got Gathering Storm, kill skill, elemental damage. Got a little bit more increased crit hit right here. Nothing really in the middle tree except a little bit of this bolt action. When I reload, I get some bonus shock. So we're kind of always getting shock damage when we're not using the ordnance. Right here, vital organs, kill skill, higher crit chance, Herald's Call for a little bit more shock, and bellows. When I activate my forge skill, I gain increased gun damage. These are kind of just generic things, and you'll see in the clips that I'm able to stand on my own 2 feet if my ordnance is out. If I, for some reason, didn't hit some enemies or wasted ammo shooting at the ground like an idiot, I'm not screwed waiting for my ordnance cooldown. That gets you out of here and unlocks these branches. I like Searing Cold. I've continued to talk about it. I think it's one of the most helpful and amazing augments in the entire game. You can freeze 99.99% of enemies, even named enemies. There's only a handful of bosses that don't get frozen and actually resist it when you throw your ice axe at them. When you pop your crucible, you get your axes out, throw the frost one, instant freeze. And then I love this other combination where I use permafrost and wild heart. So when they're frozen, you get a cryo hazard. And then the cryo hazard damage is buffed here as well as just status effect damage. So it's like a double buff here. It's on cryo and the hazard. Pretty nice. Over here, I got Blast Furnace. Had to do it because of the name, but also you rack up stacks with crits or detonations. Detonations from the axes. And those stacks are a flat damage buff. I only have 4 here. That's 1% times 30. 30% damage buff. Pretty nice. And then obviously you got to spend 5 here. I'm not touching the forge drones for the time being. I know the buffs are coming. By the time this video is up, they are going to be coming in the next day or so. I know that drones will be better, but for the time being, we're ignoring them. And obviously this makes more sense anyway. Cacophony, ordnance damage, and detonation radius. And then we can get our 5 endless bombardment here finally. So that was long and drawn out. You don't have to do it this way, but the way I've done it makes it so that, again, I'm able to hold my own when I'm not using ordnance. But there are some very good ones here in the vengeance tree, in the blue tree. So let's look at those. I'm following the same sort of thought process here. I want elemental damage, I want cryo, and I want ordnance. That's kind of the main focus, right? It's infinite ordnance, but it's also a cryo ordnance build. So I've got 5 into Wrath of Nature for status effect, chance, and cryo effectiveness. So you're going to be easily applying your status effects and doubling down on cryo here. I've got 2 points into this for increased ordnance damage and mag size. Mag size does affect your ordnance mags, so that's nice. Doesn't affect your grenade count, but it will affect your launcher mags and things like that. Here's a big one. I honestly kind of wish I had another couple points in here. Maybe I should respec and move some out of this. Tail of the Comet. When I deal ordnance damage, there's a chance for it to be cryo. You don't even need cryo on the ordnance itself. It will just end up being cryo anyway. This getting up to rank 5 would actually probably be better, but whatever. Not a huge deal. And it is affected by general status effect application chance. So then again, this does affect it. Feeds into it quite nicely. And then I've got 2 in Ancient Ways, which is just flat out cryo damage buff. I did play around a little bit with actually using the Scourge action skill And I know that if you were to go deeper and maybe get a capstone, it is pretty strong. But when I just have one of these augments, it's not nearly as fun and as rewarding and as strong, in my opinion, as being able to use Crucible and Searing Cold. I also didn't mention it, but I've got the Snowball capstone still. I really like it. Just ricochets cryo axes back and forth between enemies. Sometimes it freezes them, and then boom, you get your permafrost puddle. It's fantastic. You may notice I have some other points here, so let's get into the actual gear. Kind of did this in the wrong order, but you know what? It is what it is, one take. Obviously, the main focus is the Ordnance, specifically heavy Ordnance. This is the disc jockey. This is that big disc energy that some people have said, and I am now saying it as well. BDE for Amon. I unfortunately have a generic disc jockey, but it can roll with elements. Get throwing is not actually the firmware here. It is a visual glitch. As you see on the left, we have 3 Gadget Ahoy. There is actually Gadget Ahoy on here. I do think that one's pretty necessary. At level 3, you're going to get Ordnance cooldown reduction, Ordnance damage, and Ordnance kills grant an additional 20% damage for 15 seconds. Obviously, you're just racking those up, so you keep that pretty consistently. So that's 40% additional Ordnance damage there just with Gadget Ahoy level 3. My other weapon that I really like here is the Atling gun. On the Atling gun, I also have Gadget Ahoy. Atling gun is a homing Gatling gun, basically, and I actually have one with 51.5 per second fire rate, which is, I think, the highest it can roll. It is extremely fast. It's absurd. The audio cuts out. It's kind of insane. Some other good options. It's not that great, and I don't actually use some of these. But the Peak Seeker, 6.3 per second, so it is pretty fast. 18.5k DPS. It should be a little bit better than it is, but it's a little bit tough. I do resort to the Atling gun for boss fights typically, and the disc jockey for mobbing. Disc jockey looks like it has low damage per second, but there's pierce and they bounce around up to 5 times, so it's really more like 5x what you see on the card, which is why it's ended up pretty solid, over 20k. Moving into the other items, you have 2 real options here. I've been rocking the Blood Analyzer because I have Amp on it, and I think Amp is really strong, but most people would recommend Shiny Warpaint. Shiny Warpaint because you're going to get some fire rate when you pop it, and movement speed. 30% fire rate, more you fire per second, the more damage you're doing per second. It's extremely helpful. Unfortunately, I don't have a great augment on it though. I have Baker, which is some shield capacity, but I prefer more Gadget Ahoy, so I have been rocking the Blood Analyzer to get that and the amp damage. Realistically, I would prefer to have Gadget Ahoy on Shiny Warpaint, but I don't want to kill this right now doing a transfer, so you know, you do have some flexibility here. Let's get into the enhancement. This is not nearly as important. I think in general, enhancements do not ever affect your Ordnance. I think that's pretty accurate to say. You're mostly just going for what you can get with the stat increases. I've got fire rate here, which is pretty nice, level 16, but I'm really big a fan of the Torg stickies, so I've been rocking this forever, and I figured I'd keep it through Gadget Ahoy on there. There we go. We have 3 Gadget Ahoys. That's fantastic. Let's get into other part of the build that is pretty required. I've seen people run other things, but with our 5 points into Endless Bombardment for the regen, that's decent, but sometimes you get unlucky. RNG is RNG. What can really help is running Super Soldier Legendary Shield, which has Power Play. Part of Power Play, besides movement speed and some other nice things, fire rate, for example, is ammo regen, 1 per second. That is huge on launchers. You'll get an extra handful per mag, even if you didn't have any regen from the skills. So it is very nice. I've got Risky Boots on here, which is okay. You know, just giving myself a little bit of damage reduction when I'm at low health. That could obviously be something better, but it's what I have. I have a second Super Soldier actually with Baker, which might be better. I don't know. What's Baker again? Shield capacity, whatever. You can go either way, but definitely get yourself a Super Soldier. That's more ammo regen. And then our last variant of ammo regen is due to my class mod. We're rocking Cyborg, which typically isn't the move here, but we're getting some damage dealt. We're getting some Ordnance cooldown rate and some action skill duration, whatever. The main thing is that +5 to that skill, +2 to that skill, and I've got Airstrike on here, which is splash radius, so that's great if you're using a launcher and not the Atling gun. So let's go into that skill and show it. We've got 2 more for Scorch Kairos, so that's points into buffing our Ordnance damage. It's always nice. And Primal Surge here at the bottom. This is the other perk, the other skill that gets ammo regen. Whenever Amon applies status effect, which I'm doing a lot, especially with the cryo on the Ordnance, especially just in general, I have high status effect chance. There's a chance to partially restore shield and ammo. So there's a restoration chance, there's a shield restoration amount, and then there's ammo restoration. This plus Endless Bombardment plus Super Soldier means that I really never ever run out of ammo, even with shitty aim. Even if sometimes you're hitting the ground, even if you're not using weapons that have homing, you are going to be set. You're going to get your ammo regenerated, and you're going to have functionally infinite ordnance, assuming there are enemies on screen to hit. As long as you're dealing damage, you've got 30%, plus 30% here, plus 1 per second. It's insane. I don't know if it literally scales to 60% as a flat increase, or if it's some sort of multiplicative thing. I don't know, but it is, better safe than sorry. I know that in theory, I talked about this in my last video where I just was on UVH1, I think, running Inceptus, and I said, this isn't really optimized. I'm at UVH5, still shredding through everything. Haven't really changed much, except of course the specializations. So let's finally get into that. There might be some better ones down here, but I don't have infinite specialization points. So here is what I'm using. I've got 10, 10, 5, and 10, and 10 into Gadgeteer. 10 into Gadgeteer is the most important. So if you got 30 points, spend them in Survivor, Brute, Gadgeteer, because these two are nuts. Reduce Ordnance cooldown whenever action skill is activated. If I run out of my ammo for some reason, which I won't, but if I do, pop my action skill and just hold it. Plus, I can throw the axis, freeze people, take them out. I still have good action going on. I still have good status effects and everything like that, so I don't even need cooldown. But if I really am desperate in like a boss fight, very easy. And this one is the real kicker. Full spectrum arsenal. Ordnance damage now benefits from increases to gun damage. We're getting a lot of gun damage here. We're getting a lot from this, for example. If I get 30 stacks, that's 30% damage. Okay, so checking the stats, we're not actually getting that much additional gun damage. We got 8.8%. Not too crazy, but it is something. And clearly there would be ways to get that up depending on some slight skill adjustments. You can see here we got 69.4% ordnance damage increase, so that's the bread and butter, really. The other two specializations, we've got bullets are scared of me, increase my damage reduction based on health, 30% additional reduction when full, that's nice. And over here with the runner, bullet train, I can hip fire while sprinting and gain gun damage based on movement speed. And I do have a little bit of movement speed going with the super soldier. It's 25% movement speed, and I think if you run shiny war paint, you will get movement speed when you pop it. So those kind of feed into each other quite nicely. And then up here, we got some Torg sticky mags to help anything with, because I have this enhancement, if I can get like a Maliwan Elemental with Jacob crit and Torg sticky, the holy trinity of things for my build, even though I'm an infinite ordnance, I've got that Torg enhancement, so it doesn't even matter. I mean, this is just a generic ephemeris purple SMG, and it crushes. Also got a hot slugger, that's always fun. If I don't want to rock that, we can go rainbow vomit. Again, like, it's really not the focus. The focus is to keep your ordnance up and just keep that infinite. But when I do need to fall back on these, got some decent options. Hopefully that all makes sense. I feel like the main point that I'm trying to come across and make here is that ultimately, you've probably seen the other builds from the other large creators. We got Moxie, we got Jolts, we got Epic NNG. K6 has probably made one on this. Everyone's done a different skill tree. And the reason is because ultimately, infinite ordnance is endless bombardment or primal surge. It helps to have a combination. It helps to also get shiny warpaint. It helps to get super soldier. But in general, it's those perks. Get to those and then do whatever you want with the rest of your skill points. It's very malleable, right? You can go a lot of different directions with it. I'm pretty sure Moxie's version doesn't even use green tree. He only uses primal surge, and then he racks up into the berserk, which can get way more bonus cryo than I'm getting. But I really like the axis, so I'm sticking green tree for the time being. There's a lot of flexibility here, and I think that's what makes it so cool and so fun and so interesting of a build. It's his best build right now before these balance patch kicks in here later this week, and it's really not that hard to get. I thought this was weak, and then it just kept staying good. Like, I thought I would fall behind after UVH1, and I just never fell behind. I just kept going, and this is not optimal, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be optimal. So that's that. If you like the video, it does help me out. Subscribe for more of your second favorite outfit. I'm your guy for Amon. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.